Hi everyone, this is a Fetters A1M10E2A. This was sort of another impulse buy that I made about a week ago. This is the same exact model as the one that I recently fixed that was in the living room of my childhood home, except this one is in much better condition because this was hardly ever used. And I'm going to take it apart a little bit later to clean it out, and I'll take some video of that. But Jordan, I think I might be in competition with you for who has the find of the year, so to speak, because this thing is in absolutely phenomenal condition. The lady I bought it from said it was used 1-2 seasons tops, and to be quite honest with you, I don't even know if it was used that much. The only problem with it, and I'm really pissed that this happened, was when I was carrying it to the car, and I had the grill taken off at the time. I was carrying it sideways, and my arm grazed the power switch, and I snapped the stem off of the rotary switch. So I have a plan to try to fix that, and if it works, I will film that and post that video as well. Right now, according to this thermometer, it's about 79, 80 degrees, and we'll do an initial checkout and see how this thing works. And this thing has a really cool refrigerant gushing sound through the metering device, just like the other one does, but it's not as pronounced. Believe it or not, that Rotorex compressor is really damn quiet. So I'm going to shut the camera off. I'll come back in about 5 minutes and we'll take a temperature check. We'll also look at the kilowatt. Okay, so I've been running this just over 5 minutes. Hopefully there's not wind noise, and if there is, I apologize. And I saw it down to 56 degrees. It really depends because there's a slight breeze right now. But it's 80 degrees out, and my vent temperature is 57, and that's a 23-degree delta on high. And the amount of air blowing out, not only from the vent, but also from the condenser, is just incredible. In fact, you could probably even hear wind noise on the camera now because so much air is moving over this. And that Rotorex sounds great. Let's turn it down to low and see what our delta temperature looks like. Come on. There we go. Nameplate says 1110. 1110? Yeah, 1110 watts. We'll take a look at that in a second. One of the interesting differences between this and the other one that I have, they are both 10,000 BTU. So this is literally the 10,000 BTU version of the one that Jordan just got. This one has a Samsung fan motor in it, and this extra capacitor just kind of, I don't want to say thrown, but almost looks like an afterthought bolted to the bulkhead. But the one that I have doesn't have that extra capacitor for the fan, and it has a Fasco fan motor, which is a nicer fan motor. This one has sleeve bearings in it, that one has ball bearings in it. This one rumbles a little bit, but that's okay. Samsung makes a decent product. And you can probably just barely hear the refrigerant gushing through the capillary tube. It's not nearly as pronounced as mine, or I should say the other one. So we'll be back in a few minutes and we'll take a look inside. I'm going to slide it out of the sleeve. Before we slide the guts out of the chassis, we'll just take a quick look. This is the air filter. And quite honestly, like Jordan said, this might be all the dust this thing has ever seen. And you could tell this thing was barely ever used because if you look at the gold paint on the lettering here, none of it's worn off. Whereas if you look at the one from my childhood living room, a lot of that gold paint's missing. And even the knobs, I mean, this is the air exchanger, nobody uses that thing anyway. This is just barely missing any paint. And then the power knob, that's, I mean, that is pristine. Let's take the camera in here and take a look. I mean, there's basically no dust or dirt or anything on the styrofoam or even on the blower wheel. The evaporator looks great, just the tiniest amount of dust. And the thing smells a little bit musty because it was sitting in the lady's basement for many, many years. But that's okay, because I'm going to use the foam and coil cleaner to clean up the evaporator and condenser coils. Not going to waste New Bright on that because it doesn't need a deep cleaning. The only thing that's actually wrong with it, other than this switch, which I'm still pissed that I broke, is it looks like the few times this thing was used, when it was carried around, put in the window, the grill was left on, so a bunch of the pieces are broken, and the louvers are kind of messed up, but that's okay. A little bit of JB Weld steel stick will clean that right up, no problem. So stay tuned, slide this out of the chest. Alright, I got it out of the sleeve, and man, this sucker's heavy. I would estimate it's probably about 125 pounds, which is about the limit of how much I can lift by myself. This thing is just really impressively clean. I mean, if you look, you could see, come on, you could see right through the condenser. And even at the bottom in the corner where there's usually problems, there's nothing. It's totally clear. Oh, look at the other side too. There's a tiny bit of rust in there. But the thing's over 30 years old. What do you want? It never had a drain hole in it, but I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to drill 3 of them. And I bet you that's just cosmetic. That's not even nothing to worry about. So I figure I'll drill a drain hole here, surround this with some RTV to dam up the water. Because the water comes out 2 places. It comes out over here, and you really can't see it because the lighting sucks. Yeah, there's one channel there. And there's another channel over there. Drill a hole approximately over here. Put some RTV over there to dam that up. Here's that fan motor. It's really greasy, so I started wiping it down with some WD-40. There's that extra capacitor I was talking about. The other one I have doesn't have that. Even if you look at the fan is very clean. Compressor's still shiny. Hi. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to take this thing, strip it down to the sealed system so that I can wash it, drill some holes, and do what I got to do. I'll be back. Okay, here we are, maybe 15 minutes later, and these things are such a delight to take apart. They are so well designed. I work in a factory that manufactures power supplies for aircraft, and design for manufacturability is such an important piece of what engineers do, but Fetters really just took it to the next level. But look at how clean this condenser coil is. You could see straight through the whole thing. I'll just do this again. It's so cool to look at that. The evaporator's just as good. There is 0 corrosion on this entire coil. This thing is going to be so easy to clean, it's not even funny. I know you guys like to look at this, so I'll show you. Look at the plug. No molded plug disease. And here's the bulkhead and the fan and insulation and everything. The fan doesn't look too bad. But because it smells a little musty, I'll probably take this part of it apart, wash it with some bleach, so it smells nice and fresh and clean. Okay, this is about an hour and a half, 2 hours later. Oh, shut up. I cleaned the coils. I did use New Bright on the condenser just because there was some old dirt on there. And it just cleaned up shockingly well. I mean, you can see straight through the whole thing. And I just used the foam and coil in a can for the condenser. And this is what the base pan looks like just from washing it with soap and water. The blue tape is just marking off where I'm going to put some clear RTV, just to dam up the water so that the water's sort of forced into the drain hole and avoids these rails at the end of the condenser. And that's a Jordan trick. Thank you, Jordan, for everything that you do. You never cease to amaze me with your clever ideas and troubleshooting ability. Yeah, you can see straight through the evaporator. Condenser cleaned up, compressor cleaned up really nice too. I drilled 3 drain holes. And then after I drilled them, just surrounded the areas with some Rust-Oleum oil-based paint. I'll be back a little later. Okay, here we are a number of hours later. Finished washing everything, and look at how nice and clean that blower wheel is. I managed to fix the switch, with a caveat. You can turn it to the right, and it works. But if you turn it to the left, the 2 pieces try to break apart from each other. What I went ahead and did was I took a drill press and using a number 50 drill bit, I drilled a hole through the 2 pieces and I super glued them together first to try to hold them in place. And then I tapped a 256 thread between the 2 pieces and I put a screw in there. And before I put the screw in there, before I joined the 2 pieces back together after the drill press broke them apart, what I did was I put a piece of heat shrink tubing over them and tried to hold them together. And I super glued them together. And it kind of sort of worked a little bit, but it wasn't really that great. So I put some epoxy on the threads of that 256 screw, tightened it up real good, put it in the toaster for about an hour because I used Scotch-Weld 2216, and that's what I used to put it back together. So in a few minutes, next shot you'll see is this thing put all back together. Okay, this is a couple days later. Finally have a nice day to try to run this thing. I installed it in the window. This is the sleeve for the other one that I have, which was extensively modified so that it can be converted from wall use for window use. And I think I'll show that maybe another time. So right now it looks like, I'll just zoom in. It's about 80 degrees out, it's about 78 degrees up here. And we'll start this thing up and see how we do. The fan sounds kind of crappy when you start it up. I'm thinking maybe the capacitor is getting kind of weak. Alright, I'll come back in about 5 minutes after it's built up head pressure and we'll take a look and see how it does. Okay, here we are 5 minutes later, and it looks like our vent temperature is already down to about 50 degrees, which is pretty damn good in my opinion. I'd say the room temperature is probably maybe about 75, so getting a 23-24 degree delta, that's pretty good. And this is on the south side wall of the house, so it sits in the sun all day. Fan sounds kind of crappy on low. The bearings are totally free, so I don't know, that hum kind of suggests that there might be something wrong with the run cap, so I might have to take a look at that. But that refrigerant gushing sound sounds pretty cool. Alright, I'm going to head outside and we'll take a look at it from outside. Okay, we're outside now and here's the fetters installed in the window, running and keeping the top floor of the house cool. And if you take a look, and I'll climb up on the ladder in a minute, I have a 2x6 resting up against the windowsill and some angle reinforcements to bolt the sleeve to that piece of wood. It's a 2x6. And then if you look, I chiseled out some grooves in there. And that allows any condensate or rain that happens to get trapped on the windowsill to drain out. And then there's 3 drain holes on the bottom, each of which are surrounded by Rust-Oleum oil-based paint. Alrighty. Rex sounds pretty happy. Got some mesh on either side of it because the birds were trying to build a nest under the freaking thing. A ridiculous amount of air is coming out of the back of the condenser. It's nice and hot, so it's rejecting heat very nicely. We got a good amount of water coming out of that drain hole every once in a while. Of course, now it's going to make a liar out of me. There we go. Each one of these holes on either side, not the one in the middle, is surrounded by some clear RTV. And that prevents the water from making it all the way back to the condenser coil. And if you can see, there's a little bit of a mismatch between this color here and this color here. And this sleeve is from the original one that I had in my childhood home in the living room. And it had a bunch of surface rust on it, and it really wasn't in the greatest of shape, and the paint was getting really chalky. So I painted it with Rust-Oleum beige. That was the closest color I could find, and I'd say it's probably about an 80% match. It's good enough. Alright, before we end the video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the products I used inside of this thing to get it ready to go. Okay, here are some of the products that I used in this air conditioner to prepare it for use. I guess the first thing we'll talk about is this is Meguiar's ceramic hybrid wax. And this stuff you just spray on the condenser coil and you rinse it off. I use this on my rims. It does a pretty good job repelling water and dirt and stuff. Is it going to work on a bare aluminum coil? I don't really know, but I'm sure it's better than leaving it totally bare. That's a south-facing wall. The unit faces south. The ocean is a couple miles south of where I live, so on a foggy night or a windy, rainy night, some of that salt water could get inside of it. And then this is Turtle Wax Hybrid Solutions Ceramic Spray Coating. You're probably wondering what the difference is between this and the Meguiar's. This is a very, very good wax. Project Farm tested it out and it just beat the snot out of most other waxes. And what I did was I sprayed the entire inside of this thing as much as I could, base pan, both sides of the base pan, as much as I could reach. And this will repel the water that builds up, condensate that builds up inside of it. And I use this on my car too. This does an exceptionally good job. Lasts about 6 months before it stops repelling water. So even if I have to do this once a season, that's perfectly fine with me. And then earlier, I talked about cleaning up the styrofoam pieces, getting the mold and crap off of there. Well, there really wasn't much mold, or probably any mold at all. But this stuff does a really nice job cleaning the mold off if there is any present, and dirt and grime and stuff. It is pretty powerful stuff, so don't use it indoors. Make sure you let the stuff air out outside. But everything smells nice and fresh and clean after using this. And then this is CRC Heavy Duty Corrosion Inhibitor. At least where I live, you can find this in the boat supply section of Ace Hardware. And what I did with this is I sprayed the bottom rails of the condenser coil because they are galvanized metal, and they have a pretty decent corrosion resistance, but they had a little bit of surface rust on them, so this will just help prevent that rust from spreading or getting any worse. And this is very good stuff too. I'm pretty sure that Project Farm tested this and it just beat the crap out of pretty much any other means of repelling rust. I also sprayed this on the threads of any studs that are in the base pan to prevent them from becoming rusty and getting the nuts that bolt down into the base pan stuck. And then the last thing that I use is this super lube stuff. You can get this at Ace Hardware too, at least where I live. This stuff is very, very good, and what I did with this is I coated the threads of the studs in the base pan, and that'll help repel water and other junk and prevent them from rusting out. Thanks a lot for watching. Look forward to seeing you guys next time.